Gogglebox was a brilliant experience. A lot of people have seen the show, a lot of people love it, and the more I talk about it, the more I do go, God, yeah, it really was a great show to be a part of, and it is such a big show. It does get millions a week whenever it's on. So I'm proud of being on that.
It's just so relatable.
Oh yeah, completely. And I mean, no one would think people sitting around watching telly would be of any interest. But no, it's brilliant. It's all about those characters. It's all in the casting. And also, it was a tough show because my working week was Friday to Tuesday. So because all the families we were filming with, they weren't at work, so they had time at the weekend to film. So I was working Friday to Tuesday. I was driving all over the UK. I was living out of a suitcase in every Premier Inn and Travelodge that exists. And it was tough. It was tough, but really rewarding. And it really was a great show to be a part of. And also, like, during the pandemic, it was one of the only shows that was on quite regularly. Interestingly, they were all made key workers. All the people that were on Gogglebox all got key worker status so that they could keep making shows. And I feel the show really had a bit of a resurgence during the pandemic. But yeah, that was great to be a part of.
So what was your part in that? What did you do?
So I was a researcher on it. So I guess kind of like an assistant producer. So there were a team of 4 of us. That'd be the producer, me, a camera operator and a sound operator. And we would go into the people's homes. So we would go to Wiltshire, to Giles and Mary. We'd go to Caerphilly for David and Shirley. We'd go to Leeds for the girls, Ellie and Izzy up there, all over the UK. And we'd sit in these people's homes. And I don't want to ruin the magic too much for anyone who's a big fan, although I am going to have to ruin the magic. But the cameras aren't just in their homes filming them. We are in a room next door. I once had to lie in a bathtub in a room upstairs because we had to go somewhere. And
The bathtub, though.
well, we had to set up somewhere, and there wasn't much room in one of these houses, and we didn't have much. There was nowhere really to sit, and so we had someone sitting in the corridor upstairs. I was in a bathtub. I had to go somewhere. It was actually quite comfy, and I was also at the same time, I was like, "What am I doing with my life? Why am I in the bathtub?" And
There's no one else's bathtub. I hope it was clean.
Exactly. Oh, they didn't mind. They didn't mind. That was going up to, that was in Birkenhead. But yeah, so we would go into the people's homes, and I'd, while the team was setting up, I'd sort of speak to the family, try and make them comfortable, sort of get some idea of what they've been up to in the week for the preambles that we have to get them to do to make them appear like normal human beings. They talk about, oh, I went to the shops, or oh, I saw Deirdre the other day, or whatever. So that kind of thing. But it was interesting, and just the houses which varied in size, and the way these people lived and the jobs they did. Like, that's why the show's so successful, because it really is a good cross section of the UK.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's when you were talking about Gogglebox, I'm just like, oh, it's such a mad concept that it even took off, but it's also insanely entertaining. And I guess the closer you get to people, drawing out the essence of people, that's, I think, what we just love to watch. We're just people watching people at the end of the day, aren't we? So
we love people watching, right? I mean, we're going to talk about train stations very soon, I'm sure. But when you're waiting at the train station, like, the most fascinating part is just sitting and people. Have we got any people watchers here? Like, drop a yes in the chat on Facebook if you're like, I could just watch people all day. They're the most fascinating creatures.
Well, everyone in the audience, that's what they're doing. They're watching people.
What you're doing right now. You're people watching. There we go.
With this play set entirely on a tube, I mean, I need ideas, right? And sometimes I have no ideas. And where better to get ideas than actually sitting on a tube and seeing weird things happen, or eavesdropping on bizarre conversations. You're like, why are you speaking about this on the tube when we're all like this close together? So a lot of
these anonymity, though, isn't there? Like, it could be a kind of outrageously personal, and be like, I'm never seeing any of these people again. So yeah, I can imagine you overhear some pretty interesting and private things.
Well, bizarrely, a bit like Gogglebox, again, the tube, you get a good cross section of London, or just a load of life, because there's no first class carriage on the tube. It costs not very little money. Like, anyone can basically use it. And so, yeah, you get these little snippets of someone will come on for 2 stops and go off, and you'll be like, wow, like, I want to know who that person is. I'll never see them again. But then also sometimes, and it's happened to me, someone I haven't seen in like 10 years will just pop on. I'll be like, what are you doing here? Like, how is this possible? How are we both in the very same tube carriage right now? And that's something that happens in the play. Someone who, one of the main characters, just never ever want to see walks in, and they're like, oh, now I've got to spend 5 stops with this person. So yeah, I've been there.
What I realised in the chat is we don't actually know exactly what the play is about, and I think that's an important thing to talk about. Like, we know the scene of it, I suppose. So what is the actual play about?
So Cockfosters is a play set entirely on the London Underground in a Piccadilly line tube carriage. So it follows 2 strangers that meet at Heathrow Airport tube station, and they travel all the way from there eastbound to Cockfosters. And with there being so many people that take the tube, it's like, well, who are the people that are going to come on and off during the journey? So you have the main 2 people, and then the rest of the cast play multiple characters. I think even as many as 15 or 20 characters each, coming on and off at every tube stop. So it keeps it quite fresh. And it's just I guess a love letter to the tube in a way. Like, it's just something very relatable for anyone that's ever been on it, or public transport at all, actually. And it's hopefully a comedy. It just felt like a great setting for a comedy. And also, when the idea came to me, I was just on the Piccadilly line, and I just thought this, you start at one end, you finish at the other. Okay, and there's your structure. What are the moments that are going to happen along that way? And that was completely the starting point. Like, I actually had a sort of structure in my head, and then I started to fill in the gaps. And because they met at Heathrow, it's okay, well, they've both been on holidays. Where have they been? He, for instance, has been to Venice. He was meant to go with a fiance, but that's all over now. So he went to Venice on his own. And I actually had a friend come up to me after one of the earlier versions of the show and say that actually basically happened to me, that they'd pre-booked everything, but they insisted they went on the holiday anyway. And, you've got this boy and this girl that meet, and there's a sort of, Richard courtesy. As it goes along, could they end up together? But maybe, there are obstacles in the way, and then the various other obstacles being all the commuters that they meet along the way, from incredibly loud American tourists who can't pronounce Southwark and call it Southwark. and I've seen this, I've seen American tourists come on and just being so loud, completely oblivious to everybody else. And of course, everyone's so British and polite, they wouldn't dare say, look, do you mind just piping down, And I think there are just lots of recognizable moments, even from the announcer, the next station is Green Park, all these things in it. And also, we own tube seats. We have actual tube seats that we've managed to get. So when you come into the theatre, you'll see them, and it'll just be that instantly recognizable setting. That same fabric, those red arms. We've really gone all out on this. And yeah, it's just been a really fun thing to do. And it's called Cockfosters, so you'd hope that will make people laugh.
Yeah, that in itself is funny. I was like, I said to you, I think I said this a couple of weeks ago to you on WhatsApp. I was like, this would be an amazing, one of those 3D, 5D London experiences. I went to one not that long ago. I can't remember what it was called now. It was quite a while ago, actually, where, you go in. In fact, Doug's going on. We've got Doug here, and he was telling me he's going on one soon. Those experiences where you go in and then you're in the movie set and you're watching everything happen. That would be awesome, wouldn't it? If you were sat on the tube and you were watching all this stuff going on with all the announcements, that would be really, really cool.
Is that one of the, there are the tube stations that don't really exist anymore, stations that are closed, but you can now go and see what they're like. They're closed all the time. You can book to go on these experiences to go see them. And I know that there are, I think James Bond, things like that, they use these abandoned tube stations for filming.
You could have it there, but you could also have just a recreation of a tube carriage in a big building, right? In a room. I could imagine.
Yeah, I could imagine that. Yeah, I think that could be quite fun. I suppose you probably need a sort of dining cart or element to it, like a meal or something. So you can have waiters randomly appear on the tube just for 3 stops and then go. Yeah, that could be quite fun.
Yeah, and you could have
I think
like moving images next to the windows, so it looked like you were going through the countryside. Oh, it's just so many things that you could do with this.
like a simulation.
Yeah, like a simulation. Like you feel like you're on a train, but actually you're not.
The tube could go through space or something at one point. Just just go a bit by with it.
Anyway, so you have this idea for this play, right? We know that you have got it into the Drayton Arms for, I can't remember if it's 1 or 2 nights in Drayton Arms.
It was 2 nights, yeah.
2 nights. 2 nights in Drayton Arms sold out. Then you got it to the Turbine. Like, how did you do it? There's obviously the story of, well, you had this idea. You were on the tube already yourself. You've had this idea for this play. You've then spoken to someone. They've gone, oh, that's a great idea. There's the story of how you got that idea to a reality. And then there's the story of how you went from the Drayton Arms to a well-known London theatre. Like, that in itself is real accomplishment. So yeah, like, talk us through the first part. Like, how did that happen? What did you do to get this idea in the Drayton Arms to start with?
So anyone who's probably ever tried to write anything, you'll go, right, I've got a great idea, and you might sit down and go to it. And then you might type for a bit and get bored, or go, oh, I've run out of ideas. Right, that's it. I'll come back to this. And then you maybe never do. And now I've done that so many times. I have so many things I've started and never finished. And this is one of the actual things I've seen through and finished. And the big reason for that is that I had this idea, and that was it. I didn't have any characters. I didn't have any dialogue. I had nothing. I just had the idea. And then I mentioned this to a friend of mine who's a theatre director called Hamish Clayton, who came on to write it with me. And he had seen a tweet from this theatre, the Drayton Arms, who were meant to have a big refurbishment, didn't go ahead, blah, blah, blah. They had some free slots coming up. So this was going to be in 3 months' time. There were going to be these 2 nights available. And Hamish said, let's go for it. Let's apply. Let's see if we can get this thing on. And I went, okay, that's lovely, Hamish, but I have no ideas. I have nothing. There's no way we can do this. He went, let's just apply and see what happens. We applied with just like a brief pitch, and we got it. And I just landed in Mexico for a holiday, and Mexico now features in the play. I just landed in Mexico. He went, great news, we're going to put a play on. I was like, great, I have absolutely no ideas. How can you do this to me? But because we had this deadline, that was it. We had a deadline. In the past, I've never had deadlines. I've just gone, right, I'm going to write something. And I've never gone, I'm going to complete this thing by the end of the year. I'm going to complete this by next month. I actually had a deadline, so I had to put a show on. So we just took a real punt with it, and it forced us to put this show together. And it forced me to think of ideas. And luckily I was on holiday, so I had some headspace to do that. So having that deadline, it seems simple, but honestly, with a writing project, it's so damn important. And then we put it on there, and we had the tickets were very cheap. They're only £5, so it was very cheap. It wasn't for the money. This was purely like, can I do this? Can I actually get people in? Can I get people laughing? I've never done stand-up comedy, but this is the closest I've ever come to it. It seemed to go down really well. We filmed it. We then, over the summer, put together a pitch pack of photos, a bit of video, and we thought, okay, let's try and go out and find a theatre that's a bit more meaningful. The Drayton Arms is a theatre, but it's essentially a room above a pub. Nothing wrong with that, but it was like, is there something beyond that? And the Turbine, we thought, would be a brilliant location. And also the Turbine, I don't know if anyone's ever been there, it's by Battersea Power Station, and it's actually in a railway arch. So you've got trains going to and from Victoria, going over the theatre. And it's like, well, this is the most perfect setting for a show on a train, on the tube. So we applied there, and they saw the video, they saw the pitch back. They went, okay, well, maybe there's something in this. We'll give you 3 nights. So we're like, great, 1 night extra, but it was going to be double the capacity every night. And I thought, blimey, 3 nights, are we going to be able to get people to come? And we did. And the theatre were really supportive. They really helped promote it. I mean, that's obviously a big part, is marketing. That's how people have to go in. And theatre's so expensive. Our theatre's not, our shows are very expensive compared to West End ones, but for obvious reasons. But again, I think, it just felt like the next step, and it worked. And then the Turbine said, yeah, we'd like you to come back for not 3 nights this time, but 2 weeks. And it's just moving forward each time. And who knows, January, the hope, of course, is that the 2 weeks does brilliantly and then it becomes, I don't know, a month or something like that. That's obviously the hope here. But theatre is so risky, really tricky. And a big thing is getting people in the seats. People that have seen it in September and May for those 2 runs before, coming back, telling their friends, word of mouth. You've got to hope that the end product is good. And I think the thing about this show is that it's quite a commercial idea. It's something that a lot of people know about, the underground. It's an iconic thing. It's celebrated its 160th year this year, if you can believe that, the Tube. And if you've ever been on public transport, I just feel like it's something people will enjoy. And also, is it a format? Is it something that you could set on the metro in Paris or the subway in New York or Amsterdam, anywhere that's got a public transport system? I just feel it's got some life. And none of this was in my head when I came up with the idea. These are things that had occurred to me, but it's gone through that. It's gone a step further each time. And that's what's important. We're not still doing 2 nights above a pub. We've moved it into somewhere that, could actually, it's a great home for it. It's a great home for it.
I think you're just at the beginning with it. There's 2 things that you've said there that I want to pick up on. The first thing was Hamish. Now, you had a friend who was in the right circles, that had the right experience. So that's obviously really helpful. But it was what you said when you were like, I don't have any ideas. I don't know what. And he was like, no, we're doing it. That was, do you feel like if you didn't have someone that believed in you more than you believed in yourself at that moment, that you'd have been able to go ahead with it?
The interesting thing about this guy, Hamish, is when I first met him, I made a short comedy film, and he was an actor in it. I didn't even know he had any interest in theatre or directing or anything like that. I just thought he was an actor. And then I was asked by a friend of mine if I wanted to produce a play with her, which is a play called Lemons, 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 Lemons by Sam Steiner, which we put on 4 years ago, and we needed a director for it. And I didn't know any theatre directors at all, but I saw on my Facebook one day, Hamish posted, I've got a play coming out next year in January that I've directed. And I was like, what? Okay. So I saw it and thought, this is brilliant. And so I asked him, do you want to do it? So complete luck that I'd seen that post. And he did this play, and the play was really good fun. And interestingly, it was put on this year with Jenna Coleman and Aidan Turner in. So it was a big West End show. Not that I made any money out of that. But I always just thought this guy was talented. And what's really interesting, I know it's a bit long-winded, but what's interesting is that when I met up with him earlier this year in January or February, before Cockfosters had even sort of come to me as an idea, he was saying to me, I'm done with theatre. I've had enough. I want to be a screenwriter or an artist, or he wanted to pursue other things. And so now I joke, I am keeping you. I am the only person keeping you in theatre, because he liked the idea. And that has kept him in theatre. And I'm so grateful for it, because the guy is just a brilliant director. He's just really good with actors. I just sit there and gawp in amazement at just the way he can really control a room and really get the respect of actors. And he's got a real clear idea of what he wants, which is what you need when you're a director. So yeah, I just find it funny that I've kept him in theatre, but that's because I guess he believed in the idea. And also, we wrote it together. And especially with a comedy, if you're writing with someone else and you're both laughing, something is working.
I think what's interesting is that you obviously, it's easy when we hear your bio and we hear, you're on BBC Radio Surrey and you've worked on short films. It's easy to go, obviously, you know the right people and therefore you're in the right circles. But you didn't know a theatre director when you needed one. You didn't necessarily have the right connections. at that moment. So you thought, until this Facebook post came up. And I mean, I know that you know, and I know that I know the power of networking. I mean, we have a network
Yes.
with 1,900 business owners in it, and we encourage people to network with each other. And that's the whole point of it, because there is so much power in that. I don't feel that we can do anything on our own. You can't do this on your own. You need people around you. And that's the whole premise of why we run the Rebellious Business Network. But it feels like networking is, or just having people in your circle, having connections, people that are connected with other people, has played such a huge part in this being possible. How do you get into the right circles in the first place? How do you network in the right places? How do you make sure that when the serendipitous moments are most needed, you've got the right person that you know? Where do you start with that?
Well, I mean, when you're writing, it's mostly just you on your own, and then you might complete a piece of work, a play or a little film or something, and go, great, I finished this thing, and then you're like, well, now what? I need to do something with this, but I don't know anyone. Or yeah, how do you find those people? It's finding those relevant events. And honestly, I always say to people, like, if they've got an interview, or they've got someone wants to go for coffee, but I don't know if I can be bothered, I'm just like, just take the meeting, because not that you should always be on the lookout for opportunities or whatever, but I just think that there can always be something that in the long run could be of interest or benefit. I mean, I'd met Hamish as an actor, and then 2 years later he popped up. Like, we just stayed in touch. And I think keeping in touch with people, you have to message these people that you get to know here and there all the time, but checking in now and then. Honestly, timing is a big thing. Timing, I think, is quite important. But networking events, honestly, there was a time where I was going to everything, because you need to put yourself out there. You need to try, because even someone might know someone who might know someone that could be useful, and you can offer the same to somebody else as well. And like in my world, everyone's got to try and help each other a little bit. I mean, I think Woody Allen said something like, 70 or 80% of life is just showing up. I completely believe that. There have been evenings where I've gone, I'm tired. I don't think I can do this tonight. But I've gone, and I've never regretted it. I've never gone to an evening and gone, what a waste of time, because I've always met someone interesting.
I think there's a really valuable insight for people specifically in the Rebellious Business Network, because it's not just there for you to find clients or to learn skills on marketing. I mean, the idea is that you actually practice it. It's not like putting out adverts to help get more people in your life. It's more, you can use it to actually connect with someone right now. And I think we have this connection template that goes out each week, and also when people enter, which kind of gives them this format, which is very basic, to introduce themselves and to start making those connections. But you've just given me this idea. It's like, if someone has an idea, all they need to do is post in the network, like, I want to make this happen. Like, I've got an idea for X. I've got an idea for this. Who knows a theatre director? Who knows? I can't even think of any ideas. It might be really interesting to think of, like, what is your big idea and what person do you need to help you bring that to life? And I'm going to send an email out after the show, maybe with another template on how you can put that message out if you sort of struggle with wording it, but encouraging everyone to go to the network and just say, I've got this idea. I really want to make this happen. I don't even know who I need. Does anyone know who I need in order to make this happen? Someone might just go, I want to get involved in that.
If you don't ask, you don't get. It's that old classic thing. But like, if you post on Facebook, I'm a freelance person. I need an accountant who can help with, specialize in helping with freelance and mortgages and all that. Someone may know someone, If you don't ask, you don't get. They might not necessarily comment on your post in public, but they could privately message you. And I know there are like filmmaking networks or other networks that I seem to be on, where people just be like, I need a film location that's got this very specific thing in it. And if there are 1,000 people on there, one of them might go, actually, yeah, I know somewhere. You've just got to put it out there. And if no one replies, okay, fine, but at least you gave it a go, and I bet someone will reply.
I agree. And we actually have people in film in the Rebellious Business Network. I mean, there are so many people in there. And I feel really blessed because I know so many different people from so many different industries. And it's often that I'm referring people to people. So, I mean, if you're watching this, you need to get to know me because I talk to a lot of people and I'll be referring people to you. But it is really powerful. And I think people underestimate this. I think, number one, they shoot themselves in the face, shoot themselves in the foot. They shoot themselves in the foot by going all gung-ho and being like, you know, I want to make money, I want to make sales, and making people feel like they're just after something. You've got to prioritize friendships. You've got to prioritize relationships. Like, that is key. That is so key. It's like, you know, you build that relationship, you build that rapport, and then that's what creates that longevity and that connection. You go in and you're all about, you know, oh, do you want to buy this? Or I want you to invest in this. Or, you know, you make it about something that you want, then you instantly just put a damper on that relationship and it kind of spoils it and it kills the rapport is what it does. So, and what I love is that actually we met on a train.
I was about to say, you know, there we go. That's how I'm here now, 2 years later.
Yeah. And the reason why I got your number was because I know that Caroline wants to write a screenplay, and we were talking about that, and
yes,
I got your number, and then we're here talking about something completely different years later. But that's where that connection began, and that it had a different purpose. And you said that. You said you know, you make these connections, you don't necessarily know what they're going to be for. You can't predict like whether you're going to collaborate with each other. Maybe we will collaborate on something completely different in the future. Who knows? But the point is that prioritize making friends, prioritize connecting with people, and adding people to your network 100%. What were you going to say about that, Tom?
Oh, well, just, you know, pretty much what you've just said about the train. You know, we were just sitting on a train, but, you know, look what's come out of that. Like, you couldn't predict that 2 years later I'd be on your show. You know, it's just so funny, but that's so important. And I'm not like, I'm a bit more confident now, but there was a time where, you know, just chatting to someone at a networking event, I would find a little bit daunting, but I just, you know, just have to sort of go with it a bit and just speak up a bit. And I've become a more confident person. I actually find going to networking events has made me a lot more confident in myself, and also just generally interacting with people. I think, yeah, I just think don't be shy. Like, you know, we're all human beings. We all just want to get on with stuff, and especially in my world, like, you just never ever know what could happen if you just say hello to somebody. It's I just really believe in networking is critical.
Hidden opportunities behind every opportunity. Right now, you said to us that you got it in the Drayton Arms. You then got into, you know, it all sounds so easy. Come on, give us some twists. Like, where have things gone wrong? Like, where have things been stressful? Where have things been hard?
One of the hardest things, definitely, other than trying to come up with ideas, was a week in the September show. A week before the show went on, we lost an actress. She had to drop out because she was offered a commercial that was just silly money. And she was like, and she did the show in May. So we asked her to come back. And she was really upset about it. You know, obviously we were, because we were like, I had to spend a whole weekend calling I spoke to probably about 30 actresses. We just had to find somebody. The thing, though, I guess in my industry is that there are so many actors that finding someone incredibly short notice is possible. But like, it was Friday night about 11 p.m. and I got a call from Hamish saying, we've got a problem. And I was like, oh my God, we're a week away and we don't have a cast. And it was just a disaster. So that was something that was really tricky. Obviously with theatre, it's very risky and it's hard, especially at this stage, to really make money. I mean, you know, you want to make money on the theatre, on the ticket sales. That's the big stress. You know, the stress is actually selling the tickets. And, you know, because there's nothing worse, I imagine, than an actor coming out on the stage and there's about 5 people in an audience of 100 like that. But that happens. And I've been in an audience at shows where there's just a handful of people in a room that's way too big. And honestly, it's a horrible feeling. And also, there's also risks, I guess, like with actors getting ill or mean, we don't have any understudies. We're a small show here. We're not Andrew Lloyd Webber. We're a real small show here. There's, financial risk. There's a lot of goodwill, I guess, being involved here. But, and until that first night when the show goes out, I'm not going to be able to relax, because all you want is to hear people laughing, people coming out saying they had a good time. That's all you want, right? For anything, any book you've written or any film you've made, you just want people to have a good time. But you're not going to know until the thing's over, until the show is over. And of course, because it's live, there's risk for everything to go wrong. Sound can go wrong. Actors can forget lines, but you've just got to have the faith, and that the adrenaline is gonna push you through. But my job's done. When the show begins, I'm just sitting there hoping for the best. They've got to go up and do it. So you're putting trust in people, but you hope you've picked the right people, and I'm certain we have.
I'm feeling like throughout this, there's a lot of, which Cordelia does not finger wag. She doesn't go, "I told you so." But if she did, she would definitely be at me going, "I told you so." Because I've been going on about an idea for ages, and my thing is like, I've just got to sit down and write it. But I'm now feeling like I'm going to have the pressure of her going, "Right, I found you. I found you, director.
I found him 2 years ago." Listen, here's the thing.
Yeah, true.
Do you remember what Tom said? He said that he had an idea. He got a call and he said, "Right, we're going to do this." And he was like, "I haven't got any ideas." And then he went into a brief pitch. He totally BAFed this.
Yeah.
Right, Tom, you won't be familiar with BAFE. It means build as you fly. Like, you were in the air, flying at 200 miles an hour, like building this plane. Like, shit, we need all these things. We've got to get everything in order for this pitch so that we look like we know what we're doing. You didn't have it all, like, you didn't spend 2 years perfecting it and then try to sell it, right? I mean, that would be, do you consider that to be a total waste of time to do things that way around? It's a bit like cooking the chicken first, leaving it out on the side, and then putting the roast potatoes in the oven. Like, why would you do that?
I suppose the refreshing thing about the whole thing is it basically was an accident. The whole thing was an accident. I happened to have met Hamish as an actor. He was a theatre director. I happened to mention this idea to someone who was going to abandon theatre altogether, and suddenly went, "Right, I'm going to give it one last go." This theatre happened to have a refurbishment not go through, so these free nights came up and we got them. I just happened to have the idea on the tube. Like, everything just sort of happened, and that's why it's all been quite different. It's not been like I've sat down as a New Year's resolution and gone, "I'm going to write a play." It all just kind of happened, and it's almost hard to explain. Like, why has this not happened sooner? Why didn't this happen 10 years ago when I was at university? Why has this happened now?
Can you answer that? Do you have the answers to that? Why is it happening now and not 10 years ago when you were at university?
I think 10 years ago, I didn't feel I actually knew. Again, I think it's just me. Like, I was a bit of a different person then. I was a lot less confident, a lot shyer back then. I didn't really know enough. I didn't really know, any theatre people. I would have been busier with like my degree. I think, and having mentioned networking, like, honestly, that really played a whole part throughout my 20s, like getting out there and going to these things. I used to run events for people who worked in film, TV, and theatre. Like, me and another friend just went, "Let's do it." And we just emailed all these sort of people, junior people at our level, and just got people along. But then people started to be like, "Oh, you're the Tom that set the event up." And, I just really got a confidence during my 20s. And then, why didn't the play come sooner? I don't know. It's just, where did the idea come from? David Lynch, the film director, he's always talking about, ideas are everything, and they come like a string of pearls and all this rubbish. But it's kind of, they just come. The ideas come from, but ideas have to come from somewhere. They honestly do. The title for a show, or a classic line of dialogue, or there are some bits in Cockfosters I was reading back this morning. I genuinely I don't even remember writing them. Not because I was drunk or anything, just because I was like, where did this idea come from? I don't think I could write a scene. It's like Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan said in an interview like 20 years ago, "I don't think I could write songs now like I did back in the 60s. He said it was like a magic. He just doesn't understand like where these rhymes and all that poetry.
There was actually a Bob Dylan story my old creative writing teacher shared with me. So I've done a fair bit of writing, and so that all this resonates. Like, I've written things before outside of a marketing capacity, and I read it back and I'm like, I have no idea where this came from. I felt like I was very much like a channel. Like, it wasn't really me. It was just like I was just in a zone where it was just all flowing out of me. And I love some of the things I wrote, and I'm like, I just don't feel like I'm talented enough to produce that. That's not me trying to blow my own horn. It's me sort of sharing in that, like, I have no idea where some of the things came from. But back to Bob Dylan, I remember my creative writing lecturer telling me about a story. I think the anecdote was that Bob Dylan was sitting in a car with Joni Mitchell, and a song came on, and he was like, "Oh, this is really good. This is really good." She was like, "Oh, well, yeah, you wrote it." And he was like, "Oh, fabulous." Yeah. Do you know that? Have I just made that up?
Yeah, no, I've definitely heard something like that. Yeah.
So I just want to also, like, we've got people in the chat saying no pressure, no diamonds, but we've also got people in the chat saying I've bought tickets. So this is really exciting.
Oh,
thank you very much.
Love that.
Thank you.
I wanted to just pick your brains, really, because I think it's just such an interesting story. I absolutely love an idea to implementation story. It takes a lot of courage. And I know that we've got so many people in our audience that are full of ideas because they're passionate about what they do and sometimes not courageous enough to just go for it. And I think you've shared some real wisdom there. But I also want to ask you, I know that you've got a big ask. You've got 2 weeks in this theatre, and you felt at the beginning, maybe less so now because you're selling tickets and it's underway, but you've got to fill this theatre. If you fill this theatre, what happens next?
Well, I mean, if we fill every night, we would think, okay, we can sell this show. I mean, selling that 3-night, what then became a 4-night run because it sold out. That 4-night run in September, selling that out, we thought, okay, this is an idea which must appeal to people before they've even seen it. We hadn't had any reviews. It's called Cockfosters. It's a fun title. It's about the underground. Like, it's clear what it is. It's a comedy on the underground. Now we've gone this time round. We had a 5-star review for the show back in September. We only had 2 reviews, 5-star and 4-star. But obviously, like, to get a 5-star, you've got to use that, and that was great. So that was really nice to read. But to get all those people in, it's about it seats about 100 people a night. So we are looking at nearly 1,200 people. Then we'll be able to go out to producers and other theatres and go, look what we've done. Like, look, like. It's a huge ask, and we're still, we've still got work to do, but there must be something in it. And we just have this real belief that this isn't the end. Like, I now own these tube seats. I own tube seats. I have to put the show on again. I just, could it go to the Fringe, the Edinburgh Fringe? Like, that's a dream to have a show at the Edinburgh Fringe. Someone said, oh, it's in Edinburgh. People in Edinburgh aren't gonna like this show, and it's like, well, I think most of the people that go to the Edinburgh Fringe are from London anyway, so
yeah,
I don't think that matters. But it's only an hour long. This show, it's short. There's no interval. It's the kind of show that I would want to see, and so we've just got to hope. We've got to hope that some industry people come. That's something that we're looking at, and just getting some buzz around it. Could this theatre, the Turbine, be the home for Cockfosters?
Tom, we've had 2 people in the chat. I'm chomping at the bit here. We've had Jason. By the way, shout out to Jason. For those listening on the podcast, this is a live show. You can come and be in the live audience with us. But of course, we do turn it into a podcast afterwards. But we've got Jason, who has been keeping me really entertained in the chat throughout the whole show. I just want to thank you for that, because you are so funny. He's been saying, we're watching people talk about watching people whilst we're watching people, which I found hilarious. But he and Doug have both said that we need to have a Rebellious meetup at the Turbine Theatre for Cockfosters. And I love that. I'm going to let you all know, I've bought my tickets. I have bought them. And this isn't the purpose of this, but Tom's just so lovely. I just want to support him. I just really think, and I feel that the rebels watching this are feeling that too. I asked if anyone's got any questions. And Jason said, well, the main thing to ask is, Tom, what can we do to help you? So
I love that.
That's just awesome. And that's what we're all about. It's so exciting to hear that people have bought tickets already. It's obviously a very interesting concept. More people need to know about it. What can we do to support you to get louder about this?
Well, it's all about shouting, like on social media. There are so many posts all the time. Like, it's so difficult to get people to like click, because with scrolling you only get about 2 seconds, right? You get like 2 seconds. No, okay, so it's really difficult. But the thing about a show like theatre, and this will obviously date back to Shakespeare's time or whatever, but it's all going to be word of mouth. It is like friends that came in September were saying afterwards, I want to come back and I want to bring friends, and that's it. It's just word of mouth, I suppose. I doubt anyone here has seen the show, but this is my pitch for it, I suppose, and it's just word of mouth. I mean, and posting links to the show on socials, but obviously that comes at a risk to all of you, because you're suddenly just promoting something which you might watch and go, oh, right. So it's I don't know. It's I don't really like to ask anyone to do anything.
I think
very kind of.
I love the idea of Jason sorting out, saying two birds, one stone here, suggesting that there should be a rebellion meetup, because then we could promote the rebellious meetup, which happens to coincide with a viewing of your show, which means that we can run the risk of it being a terrible show, but also still promote it with true gumption.
Apart from you're in Bali, Caroline. How
I know, I'm in Bali. I'm absolutely devastated because, well, not now.
Right.
This is England. So I go to Bali on the 8th of January, unfortunately. Cordelia did invite me to the show, and I'm really gutted that I'm not going to be around for it. But I really want to sort of scream from the rooftops that we should have a rebellious meetup, which I will Zoom into via telecommunication.
And the other great thing about that area, around Battersea Power Station, is it's been completely redeveloped, and it's got all those bars and restaurants, and the show's 7:30 to 8:30. So if you want to grab a drink or dinner afterwards, it's just a great area to go to. And I think that's been another real appeal, is that the area is great. It's not too difficult to get to, and it's a really nice part of London. It's not like I'm asking
it's
people.
It's great in Battersea.
It's not like I'm making everyone go all the way to Zone 8 or something. It's quite a good area to go to.
I really recommend it. It's funny, actually, this whole way through, it still feels very familiar to me. So I hail from the Piccadilly line at Uxbridge, and I have once done Uxbridge to Cockfosters journey, which was a traumatizing experience, because I then got stranded in Cockfosters when I was 15, and I ended up having to spend the night at Cockfosters station. It was a travesty. So I'm very much familiar with this. And I was like, gosh, that would have been a really funny story. I also, I'm kind of familiar with Ealing, and I also lived in Clapham for a while, so I'm very familiar with that. So I feel very kindred spirit with you. Plus,
I mean, I'm in London. I'm based in Acton Town, which is on the Piccadilly line, and so when I go into central London, I'm getting on that Piccadilly line eastbound towards Cockfosters. So I am kind of living the play every day.
Yeah,
I've even I landed at Heathrow earlier this year, and I got on, and I just thought, I'm living this play. And you arrive at Heathrow, you get on the Piccadilly line, and it's not a very attractive tube line. And I just think, God, what
I hate it.
what do the tourists think? It's like, wow, I'm in London, and I get on this train, and I'm like, oh wow, this is why am I going to somewhere called Cockfosters? It just doesn't. I just think it's so funny.
Piccadilly line to Cockfosters. Yes, I remember. Yes, I remember that very well. It's ingrained.
I hear that every day. I'm in London. So
we have a lot of people in the chat saying as well that they know the route, they're familiar with it. I think it really speaks to a lot of people, especially Londoners. Like we all know it. We all know that route. Well, everyone knows a route at least. So there's a lot of familiarity, and and also Battersea's great. That was my point earlier. Battersea's fabulous. Yeah, I'm so happy if you really want to shout this out, because it sounds like you've got so much passion and enthusiasm and relatability as well. I really like the novelty of the tube and the seats, and it's really cool. It's dynamic. Really love it.
The tube is, as I said earlier, it's 160 years old. Like, it is amazing. And people, it's very easy to moan about delays and oh, they've put the the price up by another 5 or 10p and that sort of thing. But like, it is pretty cheap. Like, and you think how far it can take you around London. You can get around London, like you can go anywhere. Like, it is an amazing the amount of trains. Like, how many tube trains are running at once? Like, how many millions of people ride on it and rely on it? Could you live in London without it? It is a brilliant thing. And like, there are bits in this show where we have a bit of tube trivia because there are like really interesting things about it. The abandoned tube stations. Why are they abandoned? The Victoria line was going to be called the Viking line, and how they name lines. And I learned only the other day that only the Victoria line and the Waterloo and City line run entirely underground. Everything else isn't. Yeah, only those two lines run underground. Everything else goes overground at some point. So they're sort of less undergroundy than you'd think. Someone says 5 million tube passengers every day. Like that, it's incredible, amazing, and you can't really live in London without it.
Yeah,
no, it would be a nightmare. But yeah, I imagine there's so much inspiration. I think the challenge is probably selecting what goes in the play and leaving. As Caroline says, you have to kill your darlings and you have to cut a lot of stuff out. So I imagine there's been lots and lots of ideas.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been tricky and people will watch it going, oh, why didn't you add this bit or this bit? The thing's only an hour. We've got to have like a bit of a story going. But one bit I did put in, which I have to thank my dad for, is that my dad came home one day looking a bit forlorn. And I said, what's wrong? And he went, I had a first today. I was offered a seat on the tube. And I could see he was affected because he said for the first time ever, he felt a bit old. Like someone had looked at him and gone, do you need a seat, sir? And he was like, no, this moment has happened. I can't believe it. I'm being offered it. And he took the seat, but he wasn't happy about it. But that's like a really recognizable moment, people offering their seat to somebody else. But in this instant, my dad was actually quite sad about it because he said he felt old for the first time. But like that's a moment that's in the show.
I've got a million anecdotes going through my head that I would insist would be in there. I once had a Spanish friend who came over and from Spain and was working in a bar serving drinks, and she couldn't understand what people were saying. And then she realized that she knew English one day when she got on the train, and she's like, I understand the conductor. I understand what this is saying. Finally, these words have meaning. And I had a friend who bumped into a former person that she dated who she felt was the love of her life, and they bumped into each other on a tube, and then they began their relationship thereafter, which was dramatic and terrible, but nonetheless it happened and it was wonderful. I've got so many. I've been bursting. I'm like, this isn't my story, but I've got so many underground anecdotes. So yeah, I can imagine it was probably quite challenging filtering through what makes it and what doesn't. I would love to see this play.
It was always going to be easier to go with things that would like tick you off, like, oh god, people playing music like way too loud, people with their bags on seats. You're like, don't be a seat bagger. Take that bag off that seat. People who wear their backpacks in like incredibly cramped shoes. Oh, no, where's the consideration? All these kinds of things. But ultimately, the tube, the ultimate end lesson of the whole show is that actually the tube is brilliant. The tube is a brilliant thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to moan about it, but as I've said already, like I just couldn't live without it. And
oh god,
the characters.
Another anecdote which I can't share.
Well, honestly, I'm sure Caroline Moore will come to you.
This is the best social media campaign. Do you understand? Like I've got there's two ideas I want to give to you. Idea number one is more of a favour from our Rebels guys. If you'll come into the Turbine, because even Dolly's just had to leave and she said she's loving the energy here, but she's got to go. Perhaps she'll get to see many of the RBM members at the Turbine Theatre. I think there's some Rebels coming to this show. So Rebels, if you come and listen up, I would absolutely love you to do what I'm just going to ask Tom if he will do, right? Tom, there is this amazing thing called Video Ask, and it's free. For up to 3 questions. And what you can do is you can get people to answer. So there's a video of you saying, how did you find the show? And then they answer the question. What was your favorite bit? And then they answer the question. Would you recommend it to a friend? And then they answer the question. What you end up with is lots of video clips of people talking about the answers to the questions that you put. So if you were to set that up, and I'll share the link with you, Rebels, would you, if you go to this, do a video ask for Tom so that he starts gathering people talking? Because I think there's one thing having critic reviews, there's another thing having people reviews. And so you could have this montage of videos of people talking about the show and what their favorite bit was, which would be really interesting. Do we have a yes from Tom and a yes from Rebels on that?
I mean, that obviously sounds fantastic, but it's obviously got to be on the condition that you like the show.
You don't have to share the horrible ones.
Yeah,
You're in control.
Well,
Okay,
hopefully you will.
The second thing is that this becomes like a movement or some kind of massive social campaign, because you've just seen Caroline has just got really inspired. She's got 100 stories popped in her head. And I've had stories pop in my head of when I was on the train, and there are some really funny things that happen. I mean, there's been hysterics, there's been tears, there's been all sorts of things happen whilst I'm on a train. What could we do to get people sharing their stories of being on trains on social media, doing hashtag Cockfosters or something along those lines? Like, how cool would it be to have a Cockfosters Instagram account that was just full of people's stories of being on trains, rather than it being full of anecdotes and things about your play? It's full of people's stories, right? And people get to put in their stories to the Cockfosters Instagram account, just like with Lad Bible, and on the Instagram account or something. You have this like hashtag Cockfosters campaign where it's people sharing their anecdotes. I think that would go.
I love that. It's going to be filled with me to start with. I've got so many.
That can be for the next draft.
Just a brand awareness campaign. Look, I refuse to believe that you're not going to sell this theatre out. It's going to go places. This is going to be huge. I really do think that. I do believe that.
Good idea. That's a really good idea, actually. Yeah, like getting people, what are their tube stories, some good name for it, but something like that.
It's starting the Rebellious Business Network. I kind of think, like, as a starting point, I'd love to hear everyone's train stories on the Rebellious Business Network with the hashtag Cockfosters. And Tom, I think everyone would be happy for you to share that into a particular social media. If you'd want to, they can put it on your page just to like gather some momentum, because that's what people like, right? They like relatability. We talked about this with Gogglebox. So anyway, I'm super excited. I should mute myself because I'm far too enthusiastic. I'm taking this on myself.
It's been absolutely epic to have you on the show. Thank you for coming on. I know this is your first interview. I think you passed with flying colours. You need to be interviewed more. You are funny. You're engaging. I cannot wait to come to Cockfosters and see the play. And the other thing I was going to say was, where can people find you on social media? Where can people follow you? Or follow Cockfosters, but I think follow you would be good. We want to follow you, Tom. We like you, Tom. We love Cockfosters, but we like you more. So where can we follow you as your journey develops?
Well, luckily there aren't many Woffendens out there, so it's probably quite easy to find me. But I'm on Instagram. You'll find it's very random posts on there, but I'm on Instagram. If you want to follow the sort of team behind the show, the username or hashtag, whatever is Slow Mojo Collective. And there's all theatre-based stuff, and we share all these things. Oh, thank you very much. You've already posted it. But Slow Mojo, and we're posting actually another thing today, because we filmed the show in September. We have one of the characters from the show who's called Richard, who's the sort of guy you love to hate, that comes on the tube and is sort of our main guy's worst nightmare, and insults him in front of this stranger. But he's got some very odd way of talking, Richard-isms, we call them. And so we've just got a little compilation of these sorts of these things that he says. And so that will hopefully be an engaging little treat that we're going to share today. Maybe we've already shared it, actually. I haven't looked, but that's going out today.
Awesome. Well, I've just dropped the links to both your Instagram and Slow Mojo Collective in the chat on Zoom and also over on Facebook. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, it will be in the description of that, along with the link to go and check out Cockfosters and see if you can come along to the show. And I look forward to hearing your anecdotes in the Rebellious Business Network.
Yes.
Jump into the Facebook group, share some train stories, and let's do you know what? It feels like Friday. I was about to say, let's wrap this week up with some laughs. It's Wednesday, Cordelia. Although it feels like Friday, I'm not going to lie. End of year.
It is Christmas.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
I'm also sending out an email to remind everyone that if you have your big idea, don't forget to use the network, not just to get clients and to promote your services, but to also find collaborations. That's the big thing that we're there for. Clients, collaborations, connections. I've got my stick here. I don't know. I just no. Anyway, clients, collaborations, connections. That's what they're here for. So put a post into the Rebellious Business Network. A, with your underground anecdotes. B, with your idea, asking what other people are able to bring to the table. Would they like to collaborate? Do they know someone who needs someone with what you're offering? That's what their network is there for as well. And I will maybe consider doing that myself and lead by example. Okay. We'll see.
Thanks so much. I was honestly so nervous at the start. I'm actually quite sad it's over. but thanks for anyone who's tuned in and bought a ticket. Honestly, that's really kind. And I hope you enjoy the show.